Yeah, doing great, sales and so. Can I swear?
We'll bleep it. Welcome to On the Hunt, the podcast where we aim for success one cold call at a time. I'm your host today, Jason Meyer, and today we're joined by one of our star SDRs here at the Cognism and Casper offices, Elsa Alami.
Hi.
Yeah, how are you?
Just came from a meltdown, so.
Well, save it for the camera. So, Elsa, can you tell us a little bit more about your journey into sales and how you ended up in this industry?
Before I was doing finance, I was doing an apprenticeship at this big bank, and I was just like, oh, you know what? It's just not doing the kick. So I was looking at what was like trending, and believe it or not, it was kind of sales and tech. So that's how I decided to go into it a little bit more. And then I stumbled upon Cognism.
And do you feel that your experience in finance and banking helped you with some tools or skills for this industry?
It's difficult to say because here everything moves rather fast, and in finance is those big dinosaur companies. So everything is just super slow and the processes are super old. So I was totally a different switch from one to the other.
So as a hunter,
yeah,
what's your strategy for targeting decision makers?
One thing I absolutely love to do in order to not give up, if sometimes somebody answers, it's somebody really important, but the interaction doesn't really go the way I want to, I usually kind of call them back. Like I let some time pass, and then I call them back when they're 100% sure they don't remember me, and then I'm like, hi, like we've talked about like 3-4 weeks ago and about this and that. And I don't know, it seemed receptive. It just wasn't the right time. And then the interaction just goes a whole different way.
Okay. So in your experience, what is a very common mistake people make when cold calling?
Yeah, I would say something that I see really too frequently is when you go into the call and you desperately want a meeting. Like you're just like, you can hear, you have this commercial breath, you're just like meeting. And for me, that's where you kind of fell, because everything you're gonna ask is gonna be oriented towards getting a meeting. It's just like you're gonna ask certain questions in order to get a certain response. And when you don't get what you expected, you're kind of blocked. And you're just like, oh, where do I go from there? Like I just kind of ruined the call. Mm-hmm. So I would say not being outcome blind is something that can ruin so many calls.
Okay, well, that's great insights. So, Elsa, how do you personalize your calls to stand out from the rest?
Yeah, what I love to do is, I think intonation is super important, because from the beginning, if I go like super high pitch, they're gonna be like, what is this call? So I would go and just have a super grounded voice, and my approach is making sure they talk like the fastest way possible. So like, just tell me about you, like in 30 seconds after I talk, like I just want you to tell me about your issues, and it's like you. And me is almost just like I kind of just rear the conversation, because then people just love talking about themselves. So if I just go in with that, surely they have a better predisposition.
You heard it here first. People love talking about themselves. So how do you maintain your motivation up after hearing, let's say, too many no's?
I think this is where maybe my team is gonna come in, because we have a really good team structure. We have a great manager, and it helps us just keeping the moods high. We always have high energy. We always annoy everybody in the office. Like we're just the noisy crowd, which I think is why we also don't do that much of work from home. Half by choice, but it's also, we know that we just have a better mood as a team. So that's how I would say it lightens the mood, even though sales often has this misconception that it's a really solo game. But I feel like just the environment plays such a big part in it.
Okay. So that's great. I mean, what we work in the same office. I hear you guys. You guys always have a great energy. So I'm glad to hear that also your team plays a big part in motivating you guys and keeping your spirits high, all of you together. So how do you approach call reluctance? Let's say maybe one day you just don't feel like picking up the phone.
Oh yeah. At the beginning, when I first started this job, I remember I didn't expect we were gonna do our first cold calling like in my first week. So I had my heart like in my chest, just pounding and all that. And I remember thinking, oh my God, is this gonna be like that every time I pick up the damn phone? I'm just gonna be like near dying every time. So I had this big call reluctance, which went down with experience. Of course. And I think it's because at the beginning, I was so afraid of course, I'm gonna mess up so many calls, but I was kind of afraid of the consequences of that. And it was just with experience, you realize just some accounts, you don't care. We don't have a product that is meant for everybody. And that's like fine. But it was me realizing that, first off, if I mess up a call, I'm not that important. Like they're not like, as we said, like if I can call you back in 2 weeks and you're not gonna remember me, then I don't really have any reason to feel like super stressed and just, oh my God, like I'm gonna ruin Cognism if I don't make this call. So it's just about, once again, managing my own expectations and controlling what I can, which is just taking a deep breath and just calling this damn prospect.
I want to talk now of one of your most like memorable success stories from cold calling. So what made it successful?
I wouldn't say if it's like that much of a success story, but for me it was fun. But it was a guy I called like right at the beginning. He answered, he was like, oh, he was an SDR manager. He was like, oh yeah, sure, like I get a meeting, like I know this. And then he no-showed my meeting. And then for all of the past month, like I tried to get him back. He was like, yeah, it was just super hectic. Blah, blah, blah. And then I sent him, I remember a meme because he stopped answering, and it was just like this skeleton meme of just like, I think it was like me waiting for you to answer, like in quote, just big. And he still didn't reply. And I don't know if it's success as much as like revenge kind of. But then this manager, one of his rep, messaged my director because we were going to an event and they were just going to meet, and he was one of the target. And then he replied, yeah, sure, I'll get the meeting as soon as your manager answers my SDR. And then in a minute, like I had this answer. I was like, oh, damn. And then I meet him in real life, and then we just had a laugh about it. And of course, getting the meeting in the end. So for me, this was like personal satisfaction more than just like the biggest success stories, but it's also like an example of just reluctance in SDRing with like sometimes people, it's not that they're not interested, but it's just things get hectic and you just have to follow through and just getting any means to getting to that prospect. And I feel like the skeleton one is a good one because I'm like, I'll finish like that before you stop answering. It's just like, not in a psycho way, but I'm just like... Yeah.
Of course, I mean, success is measured differently by everybody. And little things can be successes, big wins can be successes too. And I definitely appreciate the meme aspect of it.
Yeah, the meme one was great.
Yeah. So if you can give a piece of advice to anybody starting in cold calling, like what would it be?
First off, outcome blind, I would say. Don't be obsessed with the meeting. But it's also when you feel like you want to word vomit everywhere, just take a second, breathe, and give just a second for the prospect to answer your question. And use the pause as kind of a weapon, because he's gonna sometimes like you can almost cut them off. And if you just pause, he's gonna go on and on and on and give you all of this juicy information that you didn't even ask. And then you don't need to ask as many questions as you initially thought, or just like feature bash, just telling them everything that your product does great, which is great, but initially the prospect doesn't care. He's just like, I mean, I don't know, like I don't know you, you just call me out of the blue. I don't care about all your features, like I care about my issues. And just sometimes being like, yeah, what is your issue? Goes such a such a long way.
Okay, you just said a term that I hadn't heard before, feature bash. Can you explain a little bit more about what that is?
Yeah, so it's gonna be when I'm gonna talk about every single thing that my product does, and not in a way that is relevant to you. So in the example of Cognism, like if you tell me, yeah, no, I don't have enough mobiles, I'm gonna be like, oh, it's great because we do mobiles, we do diamond, we do intent, we do like enriching the CRM and all that stuff. And meanwhile, like for four of those things, you're just like, I don't care. I only want like good mobiles. And then I'm gonna lose you because I'm gonna talk about all those things that you don't care about.
Okay. What's the most surprising thing you've learned about human behavior or psychology when cold calling?
I love this question. I would say is first off, people really don't remember me the way I thought they would. It's just that. And sometimes it can be like if somebody is not in the right place of mind, it can be the right product, it can be the right timing. They're just not going to want to talk to you because, yeah, they're just overwhelmed. And I think it's taking the human approach when it comes to that, in the fact that you're going to have many opportunities, but if you really leave a bad impression, then that's when they're going to remember you. But if you accept that sometimes your timing isn't their timing, then it can kind of open doors for a relationship that is in the end what you want. Like it's about building relationship and having them remember you in a more positive way.
That's great advice for sales and for life in general. Just don't take things too personal. It's just, it's just sales.
Great life advice. That's what we do in sales. We learn about life.
On the hunt, things can get very intense. So how do you keep the fun alive during your cold calls?
So sometimes as a team, we do a lot of incentive. And my favorite one is we did a cold call bingo where we each had like a list and words that you needed to say. So there was like dumb things like ratatouille, like I'm gonna faint and stuff like that. And this was the funniest one that we did so far. Because one of my colleagues picked up the phone and he was like, oh, do you have 30 seconds before I faint? And then it was such a funny one.
Yeah. Cold calling bingo sounds like a new podcast. Elsa, we're getting towards the end of our podcast, of our episode. So to wrap things up, what's your top tip for SDRs and BDRs listening who want to take their cold calling game to the next level?
Yeah, next level, it would be master the power of silence, but just the pause. I go back to it so much because it's going to be my number one advice. Like when you pause, you ultimately, like you appear confident, like you own it. You own the call. You're not afraid of the pause. You don't feel embarrassed by it. And then ultimately they're just like, wow, like who's this confident dude talking to me? Like, let me give him a meeting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that's the best answer to wrap this segment off. But I have just one last one for you also.
Yeah, shoot.
Do you like my hat?
Oh my God. I wish I had one.
Okay, well, if you play your cards right, maybe you'll have it. Okay, Elsa, well, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure is mine.
Okay, and thank you for watching this episode of On the Hunt. Join us next time where we'll be aiming for success with a different sales expert. Bye.
Bye.